past decade, Skyrim has gone from one of the most astonishing RPGs that the video game industry has ever seen to that game that Bethesda just keep releasing. It's become something of a talking point to focus more on why it's not an incredible feat of code, pointing out its many flaws which have gone long uncriticized due to a godlike status in gaming. With that said though, these same people often forget just how and why Skyrim captured our hearts in the first place. Unbelievably intricate and well thought out conceptually, the world is just jammed full of incredible secrets and tiny details. Over a decade later, and Skyrim still has secrets that even the most die-hard fans are still discovering, and that's why we love it. I'm Jess from WhatCulture, and here are 10 subtle details everyone missed in Skyrim. Number 10. Foxes can lead you to treasures. We'll start off with something easy and cover one of the most well-known secrets in Skyrim. Turns out the foxes are actually good for something other than being an annoyance, being a nice little thing to shoot your arrows at, or fusro-dying them off a cliff. Should you not opt to butcher the little helpless animals, they'll actually lead you towards treasure and hidden secrets buried in Skyrim's world. A lot of people condemned it as pure chance, considering the fact that you can't stumble 5 seconds in Skyrim without finding something of worth, but the foxes distinctly stop next to the places that they lead you to. They'll often paw at the location of treasure maps, meaning this is a genuine tactic to use to up the gold in your Skyrim wallet. Not to mention, it sounds exactly like the kind of very intricate, well thought out design that the Skyrim devs are known for. Number 9. You can pickpocket and kill BRIAR hearts. Forsworn BRIAR hearts are among some of the toughest enemies in the game, at least definitely in the early stages. They have high HP and they're surrounded by hag ravens or several other Forsworn. However, if you can manage to sneak up behind them and pickpocket them, you can actually pickpocket their hearts right out of them. Simple as that, using good old-fashioned Skyrim sneaking to literally steal someone's heart from them. It's not that useful, however, as they have exceptionally high sneak detection, and by the time you have a good enough sneak skill to be able to do it, you're probably going to be one-shotting everything anyway. But it's a cool detail nonetheless. Number 8. There's a secret third faction in the Civil War. A genuinely superfluous and unnecessary detail that Bethesda took the time to not only factor into the game, but also record additional dialogue in the case of the player completing quests in this particular order. Should you decide to kill the Emperor via the Dark Brotherhood questline and then join up with the Imperials for the Civil War, General Tullius will factor that into the Imperial oath that you have to recite. Instead of swearing fealty to Emperor Titus Mede, you'll swear fealty to some other unnamed emperor. Chances are you could have done this and not even noticed such a tiny detail, but it barely scratches the surface when it comes to certain series of events that Bethesda account for. Number 7. ASTRID hidden dialogue. This puts the changing of the Imperial Oath to shame, and you will likely never come across this naturally in the game, as it requires you to chop and change questlines in a really peculiar way. This one involves both the Stormcloak questline and the Dark Brotherhood one. Should you continue through the Dark Brotherhood questline up until just before ASTRID gives you the quest to go to Solitude and kill Vittoria Vici at her own wedding, then play through the entire Stormcloak questline and start the Siege of Solitude, you'll get unique dialogue from ASTRID. She'll condemn you for ruining their plans and tell you to go sort that crap out before she'll let you continue with the quest. It makes sense, but the fact that Bethesda has considered every combination of conflicting quests and set up failsafes is pretty admirable. Number 6. Lockpick clicks. Now this little trick is a bit touch and go since it doesn't happen perfectly every time. It is probably just incredibly precise and can be utilized exceptionally well if you know how. During the lockpicking minigame, if you listen really carefully, you can hear an audible click whenever the lockpick passes over the correct position. It is very precise and probably requires you to hit dead center of the sweet spot, and it doesn't work if you just spin the pick wildly. It's easier to notice on novice locks, but can be really useful when you get an obnoxiously difficult lock. Number 5. The map is always frozen in real time. When you open the map, the camera looks as if it pulls up and away from your position, but did you know that the map screen is actually a zoomed out version of the real game world in real time, and not just a pre-existing map graphic? This can actually be proven too, as when you kill a dragon and absorb its soul, you can actually see the tiny glowing orange spot on the map. It is easier to see at night, but it's definitely there. It is obvious in retrospect as the map screen perfectly mimics the time of day without rendering anything else. Number 4. The Udifract. The Udifract is a recurring monster in the Elder Scrolls series and is probably one of the most interesting beasts in the series as a whole. Skyrim's incarnation can be found in the Dawnstar Dark Brotherhood Sanctuary, but it originally appeared in the Blood Moon DLC as a part of Morrowind. The original beast massacred a bunch of patrons of the Thirsk Mead Hall, a location you can revisit in Skyrim's Dragonborn DLC. It's the only troll in Morrowind and is also the child of the version that appears in Oblivion. Oblivion's version, the Udifract Matron, can be found at Dive Rock and is almost completely invisible. The story of the monster is a reference to Beowulf, in which a similar monster attacks a mead hall. These are the kinds of stories and references that get buried beneath fetch quests and thinly veiled plot, yet remain interesting nonetheless. Number 3. The SHATTERSHIELD Tragedy. The SHATTERSHIELDs are one of the clans in Windhelm, and they have perhaps one of the most tragic stories the game has to offer. Prior to the player's arrival in the city, one of the twin daughters of Tova Shattershield is murdered by the serial killer called the Butcher. You can solve the murder if you wish, but that isn't what's interesting about them. During the Dark Brotherhood questline, you're given the optional objective to kill Nilsine Shattershield, the twin of the deceased. Should you choose to complete the totally optional objective, you can later return to their household and find that their mother has killed herself. This is one of the game's best examples of subtle storytelling and one of those instances where your actions actually have consequences. It's a little bit of a shame these moments weren't made the main focus of the game, as they really do have the most impact. Number 2. Dragon Burial Map. When you first meet Delphine in her basement, you can take the map from her table. It details dragon burial sites across Skyrim. Most people would simply pass this off as a unique little trinket that you can claim and keep in a chest, but it actually has a use. After you complete each quest in the main questline, you can go to each of the different burial sites and witness Alduin raising a new dragon. You have to time it with each quest, but it is well worth doing as it gives Alduin more of a lingering presence. The dragons he raises are mini-bosses and are amongst the only named dragons in the game. Should you miss a burial site because you're just running straight through the main questline, you can still revisit them later and take on the dragons. Number 1. ALDUIN'S Wall. ALDUIN'S Wall is one of the most interesting and unique places in the entire game. Not only is it incredibly intricate, but it houses a lot of secret details that are well worth a look. Most players will probably just look at it as a cool engraving, but its place within the story is really interesting. Beyond outlining the entirety of the main quest line, it also contains depictions of the Staff of Chaos from Elder Scrolls Arena, the Numidium from Morrowind, and an Oblivion Gate from Oblivion. It details the full Dragonborn prophecy, which tells the story of the previous games and how they've led to the end of the world. However, the most interesting possibility of what the wall could hold are hints towards what we might be able to expect in the next game. The wall has so many intricate little details that chances are when the Elder Scrolls 6 drops, we'll be looking through it once more to discover that the new game's story was hidden in there all this time. That's the end of our list, but do let me know down in that comment section if you can think of any other tidbits from Skyrim that you think are well worth sharing, and if you learnt anything from our list, because who knows when we're going to be getting 6. As always, I've been Jess from WhatCulture. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. If you like, you can come say hi to me on my Twitter account where I'm at Jess McDonald, but make sure you stay tuned to us here for plenty more great gaming lists.